Hey and welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome if you are new. So as you can see from the title, I am today going to be talking about mistakes that I made when leaving or trying to leave my toxic relationship. So I'm going to just try and put it into pointers a little bit. So the first mistake I made was clinging to good memories that we had. I think the brain automatically tries to hold on to the good things instead of reminding ourselves of the bad, and a lot of the time the bad massively outweigh the good, right? So I think that you do try desperately to cling to the good things to almost validate why you stayed or why you should go back. So I definitely know that I did that quite a bit, and I have got notes here because I need little pointers to remind myself of those things that I actually did. It was obviously quite some time ago. So a big one, I think, for myself particularly, and I know it's easier said than done, is actually cutting contact. So I stayed in contact with him for longer than I should have. It's a lot more difficult when you have children, and dependent on the relationship that they have with their children, because you know there can be men that are abusive to the mother of their children, but actually they aren't bad fathers and want to be around for their children. Whether they're a good role model, I don't know. I personally haven't had any close experience myself with myself or with friends that have had a toxic relationship with an abusive person and they have been a good person, a good role model or a good dad to their children. I know that might just be who I've had around me, and I'm sure there are dads that are still good parents, but in my case, definitely not. So in my case, he was not involved with the children much at all. Even when I was in a relationship with him, he was not really around. He wasn't an active role in their lives. He was obviously in and out. Yeah, definitely not a father, put it that way, or a dad of any way, shape or form. So in hindsight, once I had come away from him, that was a way that he could try and still control me, because he would use seeing the children or messaging to say, oh, how are the children, as a way to try and keep in contact with me, when in reality, when he had the opportunity to be there, he was not around at all, and did not care for the children. So now we're split up, I should have really just been like, come on. But I suppose I gave him that chance, and I think that that was definitely a way for him to try and control me, to try and stay in contact, because he would manipulate me if I wasn't responsive, to make out that I was stopping him from seeing the children. So when there were times when I actually gave him an opportunity to have the children without me there, he failed miserably. He would not show up a lot of the time, or I remember one specific time he was like, oh, I'll take them and we'll go to McDonald's, and making out he had this great plan for them, when he literally took them, I would not joking, for about an hour. And I'd say they were back within that hour. He took them to McDonald's, they ate their food, and then he dropped them straight back. Just no real interest in having quality time with them. His priorities were elsewhere, and his social life, and he obviously had other plans and things that he wanted to do, so that would come above spending time with his children. And as time went on, I began to realise that. But again, this is a withdrawing process from him emotionally manipulating me and controlling me. So I would say that that was definitely a mistake, having contact with him, because I believe that if I didn't, it would have been a faster process in terms of healing. Because obviously when something is toxic in your life and you are trying to remove yourself from that, the easiest thing to do is to just remove it completely. It's a lot easier said than done, obviously, but yeah, I think that that is something that I should have definitely have done, was just cut contact. And if he wanted to actually have a meaningful relationship with his children, or tried to, he would have taken me to court or gone down the legal route, or, you know, there would have been other ways that he could have had contact with his children that didn't involve me. Another thing actually that he would try and again use against me would be giving me any money. That was never something that he did. I could probably count on one hand the time that he might have chucked me a tenner or £20. And I could never bring myself to ask him either, because it was, again, an element of control. Like, oh yeah, you know, I've got money here and you're going to have to ask me for it. So I definitely didn't want to ask him for any money, and he would never be forthcoming with it either. But again, in other situations, this is something that other women may need, and the man would most definitely use that as a weapon of control. So that then brings me on to my next point of having contact with him was also still allowing him to dictate and control my life. Even when it came to when, you know, time went on and I was beginning to date, I think that having that contact still with him allowed a channel for him to still get in my head, to still make me fear him. So when I was dating, I would, particularly the first person I started dating after him, I would most definitely live in that fear of not wanting to date this guy in public, because I was worried that he would see us and the repercussions that that would have for me particularly. And I wasn't in a place where I was strong enough to deal with that. I hadn't emotionally detached enough to deal with that. So again, the communication with him, and I'd call it unnecessary communication, because if you are having communication with your ex-partner purely about your children, then, and keep it purely about your children, it doesn't allow for them to still be able to control you or to talk about other things, to try and know your business, to know what you're up to. Because if you keep it purely about the children, then they can't ask those questions, you know, because it's just, well, it's none of your business. But again, that comes with you building your self-esteem up and finding yourself to be able to set those boundaries. And that is something that definitely does take time. But again, it is down to the contact and how much you allow through the contact. So that will bring me on to the point that I felt another mistake that I made was dating too soon. I don't think I should have dated for at least, and this is at least, to be honest, a year after I had come away from him. It could have, I can't remember timescales, but to be honest, I think it probably would have even been about a year and a half that I really did start to emotionally detach and be in a better place where he was no longer controlling me and manipulating me. So I would say that definitely taking time to solely be by yourself and to pour into your cup is crucial. I didn't do that. I think I started to try, but I wasn't aware that I should have not dated and not entertained any other guy, because this is the time really that if you do in that vulnerable stage, you are more likely to fall into another toxic relationship because you haven't healed yourself, so your energy is just going to attract that bad energy again. Fortunately for me, the first person I dated was a good guy, so you know, thank you God for that, because I think that could have definitely not ended well if I had fallen into another toxic relationship because of the mindset that I was in. I feel like as time went on, I was, you know, healing, and I was definitely doing things to help my healing journey, which I will do in another separate video. These were all things that I was slowly doing just as the time went on that I was coming away from my ex-partner. But dating too soon, definite no. You definitely need to pour into your cup. You need to gain confidence. You need to build your self-esteem up. You know your worth, for sure. So the last mistake I'm going to say is remaining in contact with people and his friends. So I feel like sometimes, again, you have no choice when it comes to your ex's family, particularly if children are involved. My ex's family lived 80 miles away from me, so it was a lot easier to detach myself from family. Although now I have an amazing relationship with particularly two members of his family, that was something that took time. And when I was in a better headspace, I probably got closer with them because it no longer became about him. It was our relationship and our relationship with the children. Again, that comes with, I suppose, emotional maturity and intelligence, really, and being able to navigate that. So, but friends-wise, you don't need to really stay in contact with your ex's friends. I think that was probably a way for me to almost still cling on a little bit, to still cling on to that life, my past life, not being ready to let go completely. So even if I didn't have much contact with him, I would still have some contact with his friends. Not a great deal, but yeah, I feel like that was a decision that I shouldn't have made. I should have respectfully cut ties with all of them. And to be quite honest, in this situation, it's not like his friends were positive anyway. You know, if anything, they would probably be a way for him to drip feed through them and still affect my energy and, you know, manipulate me in ways, because they might be telling me things that would, you know, make me doubt myself, or still hold on to things with him, have, you know, some tie to him, some attachment to him. So trying, again, I feel like it's kind of a matter of cutting loose, really, because they are like weights and it is holding you down and it is preventing you from moving forward when you've constantly got ties of somebody just pulling you back into the space, the mindset, the mentality of the person that you are when you were with them. So it's almost like you need a fresh start, finding yourself again, or finding the new version of you. Because I would like to say that I didn't know myself at 17 years old. So when I came out of that relationship, it's almost like I was trying just to find out who I was in general. So yeah, I would say that those are the top mistakes I made. So in my next video, I am going to talk about things that I did to help me heal and to build my self-confidence and my self-worth. So I'll see you in my next video.